Hi, I'm Mike Tenney, host of Pop Culture Catechism, and this is Awaken the Word, a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Woe to you, Pharisees, for you tithe mint and rue and herbs of all kinds, and neglect justice and the love of God. It is these you ought to have practiced without neglecting the others. Woe to you, Pharisees, for you love to have the seat of honor in the synagogues and to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces. Woe to you, for you are like unmarked graves, and people walk over them without realizing it. One of the lawyers answered him, Teacher, when you say these things, you insult us too. And he said, Woe also to you lawyers, for you load people with burdens hard to bear, and you yourselves do not lift a finger to ease them. In today's gospel, Jesus is once again fighting with the Pharisees and the lawyers. Sometimes they're called the scribes. And Jesus is criticizing them because they're doing the exterior sign of faith without the interior disposition and without the love and faith in their hearts. He says, you tithe and you do all the right things by the book, but you are neglecting justice and the love of God. And he says, these you should have done without neglecting the others. So Jesus is definitely not saying, don't follow these religious rules. He's saying you should follow them, but you're neglecting the more important thing, which is love God and love other people, which is, of course, his greatest commandment. And I love the image he uses. I love when Jesus gets spicy. He says, Woe to you, for you are like unmarked graves and people walk over them without realizing it. He's criticizing them because they always take these seats of honor. They want to be the person who's seen as like the holy person, the person who does all his tithes, the person who does everything they're supposed to. But he says, really, through the eyes of God, you're dead. You're an unmarked grave. And people don't even know that you're dead. People walk by and they don't even stop and say, oh, there's that holy person who died. Like they don't even know. Like in the eyes of God, because you're neglecting justice, that's what all your quote unquote holy things actually are. They go totally unnoticed because you are neglecting justice. And then he says the same things to the lawyers, who are sometimes called the scribes. Woe to you also. You load people with all these rules, but you don't actually help them. You don't actually walk with them. You don't actually accompany them and make it easier for them to lift these burdens. And I think that is a real criticism for people like me who work in ministry and am known fairly publicly as like a church Catholic dude. And probably for many of us who are watching Catholic YouTube or listening on Catholic radio, we're the churchy person. And Jesus has some harsh words for us here. It's like, hey, we can't just be spouting all these rules if we're not actually walking with people, if we're not actually being people of radical justice and love to those around us. If we just tell them the rules, that's not the gospel. We need to be people who love every day, every person. It's challenging, but by his grace, we can do it. I have been Mike Tenney, and this has been Awaken the Word.